Some of the most powerful people don't raise their voices. They raise their awareness. They don't react to every challenge. They reflect. They don't speak just to be heard. They speak only when the words matter. In a world that never stops talking, there's something deeply compelling about a person who has learned the art of silence. The Buddha didn't need to shout to change lives. His presence, his calm, his unwavering stillness did more than words ever could. And that same strength is available to you. In today's journey, we'll explore 7 profound teachings from Buddhism that reveal how inner stillness can become your greatest power. If you feel this message is already speaking to a part of you that's been longing for peace, I'll ask just one simple favor. Hit the subscribe button. It's free, it supports this work, and it means the world to those of us trying to bring something meaningful into this noisy world. And please don't skip ahead. Every step we take today builds toward a deeper truth. There's a reason Buddhist monks spend years mastering silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've discovered how much power there is in saying nothing at all. Silence, in its purest form, is a discipline. It's not avoidance, and it's certainly not a lack of courage. It's the deliberate choice to conserve your energy, to listen deeply, and to connect to the truth that doesn't need words. We often associate power with volume. Whoever speaks louder wins. But in the Dhammapada, the Buddha reminds us that a wise man is silent like a shattered gong. That silence isn't empty. It's full of understanding, patience, and clarity. Think about the moments in your life when someone's silence said more than any speech could. Maybe a friend who sat with you in grief, saying nothing but giving you their full presence. Or maybe a teacher who listened deeply and responded only with a few words, but those words stayed with you for years. That's not weakness, that's presence. In a world that pushes us to constantly prove, defend, and explain ourselves, choosing silence is an act of strength. It says, I am not moved by noise, I know who I am. Buddhism teaches us that the mind is like a lake. When the water is agitated, you see only disturbance, but when it's still, you can see all the way to the bottom. The same is true for your mind. Silence stills the surface so you can see what's really going on beneath. It allows you to connect with your inner truth, to hear the quiet wisdom that gets drowned out by constant chatter. When you practice silence, you're not withdrawing from the world. You're preparing to re-enter it with more clarity, balance, and intention. It's important to note that silence also builds inner resilience. You start to realize that not everything needs your reaction. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to explain your worth. The mind that is quiet doesn't need outside approval. It's grounded in its own presence, and that is where real power lives. You become less reactive, more centered, less caught up in noise, more attuned to what really matters. If you're unsure where to begin, start with one simple practice. Before responding to anything emotionally charged, take a full breath and say nothing for 5 seconds. Watch how that pause changes the entire energy of the situation. That moment of stillness becomes a doorway back to yourself. Over time, these tiny acts of silence build a fortress of inner strength. Life often throws things at us without warning. A rude comment, a mistake, an unexpected challenge. And in those moments, it's easy to be pulled into automatic reactions. We raise our voice, we defend ourselves, we tense up. But the truth is, reaction is the path of habit. Observation is the path of awakening. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that we are not our emotions. We are the awareness that sees them. This one truth can change your life. The Buddha taught mindfulness as a way to step back from reactivity. When you're mindful, you notice your emotions rising, but you don't have to act on them. Anger comes, but you don't shout. Fear arises, but you don't run. You observe, you breathe. You stay with what is happening inside without letting it dictate what you do outside. In that moment of awareness, you reclaim your power. Think of your mind like a clear sky. Emotions, thoughts, reactions, they are clouds passing through. They're real, but they're temporary. If you identify with every single cloud, you'll never see the sky. But if you can sit still and observe, you'll remember that the sky, your true self, is always there, vast and unshaken. Practicing observation doesn't mean you suppress how you feel. It means you witness it with compassion. It means you get curious. Why did that comment upset me so much? What am I really feeling underneath this anger? Is it hurt, fear, or something else? This gentle self-inquiry is at the heart of Buddhist meditation. We learn not just to feel, but to understand. And in that understanding, we soften, we let go. Observing more also helps us in our relationships. When you're not reacting impulsively, you can respond more wisely. You can listen without preparing your defense. You can be present with someone's pain instead of trying to fix it. That presence is healing not only for others but for yourself. There's something rare and sacred about someone who truly listens, not just hearing words, but being fully present. In today's world, where everyone seems to be waiting for their turn to speak, or crafting a response while someone else is still talking, genuine listening has become a lost art. But in Buddhism, listening is a deep form of compassion. It's a practice of humility. It's the moment you let go of the need to insert yourself and instead open up to the reality of another being. The Buddha once said, "If you propose to speak, always ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?" But even before speaking, are you really listening? Many of us listen only to reply. We listen through a filter of our own biases, needs, and assumptions. But Buddhist practice teaches us to drop the filter, to listen without judgment, to be empty enough to receive the other person fully. That doesn't mean you agree with everything, it means you are present. You're not trying to fix, solve, interrupt, or turn the spotlight back on yourself. You are simply offering your attention as a gift, and that gift can heal more than any advice ever could. In monasteries, silence is often kept not just for personal reflection, but to allow listening to deepen. Without noise, we begin to notice the subtler layers of communication, tone, energy, body language. These tell us as much, if not more, than words ever can. And when we cultivate that kind of awareness, even our conversations become more meaningful, more respectful, and more compassionate. When you truly listen, you also quiet the ego. The ego wants to be heard, to be right, to be seen as wise or helpful. But the quiet mind says, I don't need to be the center right now. I can step back, I can make space. And in doing so, you actually become more impactful. People remember how deeply they felt seen by you, not necessarily what you said. That is the quiet influence of true presence. Buddhism also reminds us that listening isn't just for others, it's a mirror for ourselves. When you're silent, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. And when you listen to others, you often recognize reflections of your own inner life. Their fears, their longings, their struggles, they're not so different from yours. That awareness builds empathy. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It opens the heart. To strengthen this practice, try setting an intention before any conversation. I'm here to understand, not to be understood. And when someone is speaking to you, notice your urges. Do you want to jump in, defend, offer advice? Just notice, breathe, stay with them. Even if you never say a word, your presence is saying, I care, I'm here, I see you. It's exhausting to be pulled into every storm. One comment, one look, one misunderstanding, and suddenly your whole day is thrown off. We've all been there. Someone says something insensitive, or there's tension in a conversation, and your mind starts spinning. Why did they say that? What did they mean? Should I say something back? These inner dialogues quickly become mental traps, pulling you deeper into stress and emotional chaos. But Buddhist wisdom offers a powerful alternative, the art of detachment. Not indifference, but spacious awareness. The ability to witness without being consumed. The Buddha taught that attachment to people, to outcomes, to our own ideas, is a major source of suffering. And that includes attachment to drama. Whether it's other people's chaos or our own internal storytelling, clinging to it only multiplies our pain. True strength lies in the ability to observe and remain still, like a mountain in the wind, aware of the storm, but unmoved by it. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You choose peace over reaction. When you detach from drama, you begin to see things clearly. You stop taking everything so personally. You realize that many of the things people do or say are a reflection of their own state of mind, not yours. Their judgments, projections, and even their anger often have little to do with you. And this realization is liberating. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself, prove yourself, or win every battle. You simply let go. In Buddhist practice, this is known as equanimity, a balanced mind that remains calm in the face of both praise and blame. When someone praises you, you smile. When someone criticizes you, you smile. Because your sense of self isn't built on external validation or emotional turbulence. It's grounded in inner clarity. And that clarity allows you to stay centered, even in the middle of noise. One helpful practice is to pause when you feel triggered. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this really mine to carry? Often it's not. And if it is, you can still choose to respond rather than react. Choose a quiet strength over loud defensiveness. Choose to walk away when needed, not in weakness, but in wisdom. As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. We live in a world that idolizes constant motion. Productivity is praised, busyness is glorified, and doing nothing is often seen as laziness or a waste of time. But there's a profound truth hidden in stillness, one that ancient Buddhist teachings have echoed for centuries. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all, not out of avoidance, but out of wisdom. To stop, to sit, to breathe, that is not inaction. That is presence. That is mastery. The Buddha often withdrew into solitude for days, simply to sit and observe the mind. Not because he had nothing to do, but because he understood that clarity arises from stillness, not from rushing. When we are constantly doing, we are often reacting. We're swept up in habits, impulses, and pressures. But when we pause and allow ourselves to be, we start to see clearly. We come back to the present moment, which is the only place true peace exists. Doing nothing allows the mind to settle. Like muddy water left untouched, it begins to clear. Thoughts slow down, emotions soften. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. And in that space, insight arises. You begin to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, what is noise, and what truly matters. There is also humility in doing nothing. It teaches us that we are not the center of the universe, constantly needing to act, fix, and interfere. Life continues, seasons change, the world spins without our constant input. This realization softens the ego. It reminds us to trust the natural flow of things, to know when to act and when to step back. One way to practice this is through mindfulness meditation, simply sitting in silence, observing your breath, and allowing thoughts to come and go without chasing them. It may feel strange at first. Your mind will resist, but over time you'll discover a quiet joy in simply being, in the sacred stillness between moments. Doing nothing also restores your energy. It's a form of self-care that doesn't require effort or planning. It's about letting yourself be human, tired, curious, still. It's giving yourself permission to rest, not as a reward, but as a right. There's a moment right before we speak where we hold a choice. It's so small it often passes unnoticed, like a breath between thoughts. But that moment holds incredible power. It's the space where we decide, will our words bring peace or stir chaos? Will they add light or feed confusion? In Buddhist philosophy, speech is not just communication, it's karma in motion. Every word we say carries energy, and once spoken, it cannot be taken back. The Buddha taught the concept of right speech as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. This includes speaking truthfully, kindly, and at the right time. It also means avoiding gossip, harsh words, idle chatter, or speech that divides. In essence, we are asked to treat our words as sacred tools, not weapons. And yet, in the rush of modern life, we often speak without thinking. We react, we vent, we post, we criticize, sometimes just to fill the silence. But a strong mind doesn't need to fill every space. It knows that wisdom is often quiet. Think about how many misunderstandings, arguments, and regrets come from words that didn't need to be said. We blurt out frustrations, we defend our ego, we try to prove a point, only to realize later that silence would have been more powerful. The Buddha once said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." When we speak from awareness instead of impulse, our words begin to carry that kind of weight. Speaking with wisdom starts with pausing. When something triggers you, take a breath. When you're unsure, wait. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it's not all three, maybe it's better left unsaid. This isn't about silencing yourself. It's about aligning your voice with your values. It's about recognizing that your words shape not only your relationships, but your own inner state. Buddhism also teaches that silence is a form of speech. In monasteries, long periods of silence are not seen as voids, but as deep conversations with the self and the world. When you choose not to speak, you give your mind room to listen. You make space for understanding, and when you do speak, it comes from clarity, not from noise or emotion. This doesn't mean we should walk on eggshells or overthink every sentence. It means learning to speak from the heart, not the ego. The ego wants to win, to be right, to be admired. The heart wants to connect, to understand, to uplift. When your words come from that place, they carry a different vibration. They calm instead of inflame. They open doors instead of closing them. One powerful practice is to observe your speech for a single day. How often do you speak just to be heard? How often do you interrupt, judge, or complain without realizing? Becoming aware is the first step toward transforming your speech into something sacred. When your words are rooted in wisdom, people feel it. They listen differently. They trust you more, because you're not just speaking, you're offering something meaningful. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. A deep breath, a gentle nod, a quiet presence. Not every moment needs to be filled. The quietest person in the room is often the one with the most strength, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know when to speak. As you continue walking the path of a quieter, stronger mind, let your words be like medicine, offered with care, used with precision, and chosen with love. In this way, even your speech becomes a spiritual practice, not separate from your growth, but a reflection of it. And slowly, word by word, you'll build a life that resonates with peace, both inside and out. Not every room needs your voice. Not every situation needs your opinion. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can offer is your presence. Calm, grounded, and silent. There's a quiet force in someone who doesn't rush to respond, who doesn't interrupt, who simply holds space. This kind of presence is rare, but deeply felt. In Buddhist teaching, this is the embodiment of mindfulness, being fully here without needing to perform, prove, or persuade. The Buddha himself was known for his serene silence, and many of his most powerful moments weren't in words, but in his stillness. In a world where people often equate noise with influence, presence offers an alternative path. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the energy of a room. You don't need to dominate a conversation to be respected. When you carry inner stillness, it radiates. People feel safer around you. They listen more deeply because you're not trying to impress them. You're simply with them. This kind of quiet confidence doesn't come from pretending to be strong. It comes from doing the inner work of knowing who you are, what you value, and when to simply be. This also means becoming comfortable with silence, not just your own, but the silence between people. Most of us are trained to fill awkward gaps with chatter, but silence isn't awkward, it's spacious. It allows thoughts to land, emotions to surface, truth to breathe. When you stop fearing silence, you start using it with purpose. You begin to notice the subtle rhythms of energy in a room. You respond more wisely, more intuitively. You connect more deeply. In Buddhist monasteries, students are trained to sit in silence together for hours, not as punishment, but as practice. Because in silence, there is awareness, there is presence, and there is a sense of unity that doesn't depend on words. This teaches us something profound. You don't always need to say something to be seen, to be understood, or to make an impact. Often, the deeper truths in life are shared in the spaces between the words. Another part of cultivating this presence is watching your energy. Do you enter a space needing to be the center, or can you just blend into the moment? Do you listen with openness, or are you waiting to be heard? Presence isn't about disappearing, it's about being fully engaged without trying to control the experience. When your ego softens, your energy becomes lighter, and that lightness draws people in. Not because you're demanding attention, but because you're offering peace. To strengthen this way of being, practice arriving in silence. Whether it's entering a room, joining a meeting, or sitting with a friend, take a breath and just be. Ground yourself. Let go of the need to fill the space. Observe. Soften. Bring your whole self into the moment and let your presence speak before you ever open your mouth. In a world that often confuses noise with strength, may you become the one who radiates quiet power. Let your stillness be your sanctuary. Let your peace be your loudest voice. As the Buddha taught, it is in silence, in awareness, and in mindful presence that we truly awaken. If this message touched something within you, I invite you to stay on this path with us. There's another video waiting for you right on the screen. Let it be your next step deeper into the teachings. And thank you, truly, for being a part of Buddhist journey. Your presence here means more than words can say. Until next time, walk gently, breathe deeply, and remain rooted in your own stillness.